public-private partnerships. Again, if there's a more cost-effective way of doing things, these are things that we have to be open to. We're actually competitively bidding a few areas of state government right now. You'll probably see more of that. I know these are difficult steps to take, but there are things that the private sector can do better and more efficiently than the public sector. And those are things that we need to be open to and look at, because we cannot operate the same government that we have over the past many years. People are taking notice. The governor always says he's running Michigan, not the federal government or nationally, but Forbes has picked it up. New York Times has picked it up. People are really watching what we're doing. In fact, next week I'll have the opportunity to be in New York speaking at a national conference to a lot of the municipal bond buyers, the investors, the people who invest in state governments and different areas. And the entity that I'm speaking for, I can't announce it publicly, but they're going to be coming out with a new economic evaluation of the states. And they called me and told me yesterday that Michigan is ranked very high in that survey, like very high in that survey. And that survey is based upon where we've come from, what we've done, and where we're headed. And it's not just a survey on state government, it's a financial pulse of our businesses that are headquartered in Michigan. It's a very comprehensive set of metrics that are measuring the overall economic vitality of the states. And we're up there at the top of that list. And so something that's very, very proud. Watch your news next week. Hopefully it'll make news. It should. It's pretty exciting. I'm almost done. Don't fall asleep on me. Let's see. Okay. You can control the surfboard, but you can't control the wave. I had a great opportunity to work for a great guy in Utah. His name was John Huntsman. He's running for president. I don't know if you've seen that he's been on the circuit. He always used to say this. He used to always say, we can build our surfboard as a state, but we really can't control the wave. And really, this is where we are today. We're in a position where we have a pretty solid surfboard. I tell people we have a AAA budget. The budget the legislature passed is a budget that people should be proud of, because it meets. I know it hurts and it impacted a lot of people. We had to make some tough decisions. But when you line it up to structural sustainability and really investing in the right, I mean, we put $250 million in the rainy day fund. First investment we've had in that fund in close to a decade. We're making those strategic investments. But we still have stock market fluctuations. Whoever thought that the U.S. debt would be downgraded? And we have some wind shears out there. We have a big wave that we're riding in the middle of. But we know that we're better positioned now as a state to deal with these than we were just a few months ago. Our auto industry is experiencing a revisit of the forecast. We just revised the auto sales numbers down a little bit. The good news is, though, is we're still up 9% from 2010. And the autos are in a position where they can make money at these levels. And so we see these as positive signs. As you heard this morning, there's optimism out there that's kind of being pulled a little back because of what's going on nationally. But the stock market, you guys probably haven't seen it. When I left, it was up over 300 points today. You know, they're trying to settle the Greece issue, and there's some big news coming out there. But we know that we're pretty cautiously optimistic that we're on the road to recovery. We know it's going to be a small and a long road to recovery, but the good news is we're not free-falling anymore, and we have an opportunity to really build and set a strong foundation as we grow out of this. Now, we're fighting our way out of the downturn, but the rating agencies are taking notice. Just a few months ago, Fitch came out and upgraded our outlook from a stable to a positive. Moody's and S&P didn't do anything because of the national issue. There was questions of how can the states be upgraded when the sovereign federal government is kind of on the skids and even potentially being downgraded. So they weren't moving people up. But as I was talking to the head of Moody's Analytics or state ratings, he told me for the first time in a long time when they went into rate committee on Michigan, there wasn't one person in that room who felt that Michigan's credit was under fire or under pressure. So we know that we're in the right direction. We know we've got a long to go, but we're in the right direction. Why is this important? Why is this important to all of you? And this is kind of where I end here, but I think it's important to know that we now offer a climate for growth. You look at what Michigan has to offer. We've got a solid tax system that's simple, fair, and efficient, and predictable and stable. People will be willing to invest. We have a government that's operating within its means. There's no longer the pressure of, are we going to raise taxes or not? Further adds stability. You put that together with our well-educated workforce. We've got some of the best institutions in the country. We're exporting 46% of our college graduates. We need to fix that. We have the talent. We have an abundance of natural resources, which are important for businesses to operate and to grow. And we have a great quality of life. I even say that coming from Utah. It's pretty cool here. I don't know, have any of you been to Utah on the mountain skiing? Pretty phenomenal. I lived about 20 minutes from 7 different ski resorts. Now my kids are trying to talk me into buying a boat. So I say to finish, and I'll be using this next week in New York, in investment terms, if Michigan were a stock, it would be a strong buy. Because we know we're not out of the woods. I do have a tendency to be optimistic as a budget director, which is not a real common trait for budget directors. But I do think we have a great state here. We have a great people. We have a lot of great companies. And I think if we all work together, we still have a long way to go, but if we all work together, we'll climb out of this and make Michigan again once the powerhouse that it was even just a decade ago. And it's pretty exciting to be a part of it. That's why I moved 1,700 miles with a wife and 6 kids. But just to be part of that reinvention, and I'm pleased to be here. With that, I don't know, I talked a long time. Is there room for a couple of questions?
We've got time for questions.
Just don't make them too hard. I'll have to have Deb Muchmore back here respond. It's always good to see you, Deb. Yeah.
I'm on the Board of Education in a small community in mid-Michigan, and balancing our budget this year was very, very difficult, as it was for you. What reforms is the governor looking at, and are schools going to go bankrupt? I mean, there are school districts that are tottering on bankruptcy. So what is his plan for education? I know money was shifted this year. We did balance our budget this year. Next year is going to be even more difficult. What's with education? Let me take some good news back to the superintendent.
The good news is I like education. I mean, education is certainly a priority. I always tell people, in fact, my wife was checking the kids into school. I thought it was a little funny. She came home, she said, I was checking the kids in, and the principal, when we just moved out here, brand new, I guess they realized who I was and moving in, and the principal said, oh, we're glad to see your kids. We'd love to talk to your husband. And my sweet wife said, oh, I'm sure he'd love to talk to you because he's a big supporter of public education. You know, I tell people I moved here for the career opportunity. My wife moved here to put the kids in Michigan schools because the schools here are good. And we know you've had challenges at the district level. It's very difficult. We have declining enrollment growth, which is tough. At the local level, we have declining property values. At the state level, we have to balance our budget. When you look at the state revenue, the available revenue that we bring in through taxation policy, 60% of it is dedicated to education. Now, it's true we did start using it for higher education community colleges this year because we needed to help balance those budgets. I do think that you'll see Governor Snyder continue to push for positive reforms in education. We did tie a couple $100 million this year to best practices. But those best practices were set up that if the districts do them, they will save money. And so it gives the districts an incentive to implement those best practices. I'd probably say you'll see some more of those coming forward. But you know what? A lot of superintendents, a lot of people aren't real upset about that. You know, a lot of them come to us and say, we're already doing these things. And we say, great, then you qualify for the money. But there are a lot of districts that aren't as well managed. We have 510 school districts in the state. And some of them are in difficult times. And we need to work with those to help bring them up to speed with the rest of the pack. And so you're going to see a comprehensive education package going forward. I think you'll see the commitment to education, but I think you'll see it based upon best practices in driving efficiencies and performance within the system. That's what the governor's all about. He hasn't hidden from it. Now, hopefully, with the revenue growth, there won't be a lot of cuts anywhere. Knock on wood that we hold our revenues. But education's a big deal, and we know that both higher education and public education are important to long-term economic sustainability. People move here for the education opportunities. That's why businesses relocate to states. So, I don't know if that answers your question. I can't tell you exactly how much you're going to get or what, because we just don't know yet. We've got a few months left.
All right, everybody, round of applause. John Nixon, thank you.
Thank you.
Good to meet you. I'm going to give you this. More data. John, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And we do know that, in particular, too, your commitment, but the governor's commitment to education. Nobody is stronger on that than Rick Snyder.